What's up, you scholars of enlightenment? Welcome back, because it's time for round two in the battle of the space billionaires. So today is the day that Jeff Bezos, who was formerly the head of Amazon, is blasting off to space in, let's be honest, what seems to be a giant dildo. So some, like myself, are very excited, whereas others hope that the Amazon guy just kind of stays up there. So whatever your take, it promises to be a fascinating live stream. And I want to introduce some of the important ideas behind the launch today, and then we'll watch the live stream together. So this is the Blue Origin launch, and what is going on? Well, billionaire Jeff Bezos will blast off today in about 20 minutes on the first crewed flight of his new rocket ship, which is known as New Shepard, excuse me. So you can see it here in the picture, the New Shepard rocket. So the blast off is going to be at 2 o'clock British time or 9 o'clock Eastern time. And 4 passengers will lift off on the rocket from Bezos's private launch site near Van Horn in Texas in the US. And he's going to be accompanied by his brother, Wally Funk, an 82-year-old pioneer of the space race, and an 18-year-old student called Oliver Damon. So quite an eclectic mix. And here's an image of the rocket and the capsule that they'll be blasting off in. So what do we expect to see? Well, here's a flight profile for the flight of the New Shepard. So the capsule, which is on the top, which will contain the passengers, the rocket booster, which is on the bottom, which will obviously boost them off into space, will take off from the ground in about 18 minutes. It'll reach a height of about 76 kilometers, 250,000 feet up. And then the capsule, point 2 here, will separate from the rocket. The rocket will then fall back to the Earth. And amazingly, the rocket will reignite and allow the rocket to land about 2 miles from its original takeoff point on its legs, stood up to be reused. So it's going to be a reusable rocket. Well, the capsule will continue on to an altitude of about 350,000 feet above the Earth, or 106 kilometers. After it's reached its maximum altitude, it will then start to descend before parachuting down for a soft landing in the desert in Texas. So the people on board can expect to get 0G for about 4 minutes during this extended freefall. So from the top of the arc here in the picture down to the landing in the desert, they can expect about 4 minutes of basically weightlessness, where they'll be able to float around in the cabin, enjoying themselves, and we'll hopefully be able to watch that. It's very warm here, by the way, if I'm sweating a little bit. The temperature's horrendous, and somebody's mowing outside, so I can't open the windows. So forgive me looking a little bit floshed. So is there anything new here is the question. So a lot of people, particularly with the Branson launch last week, the Unity launch, were a little bit put off because there wasn't anything new. They didn't go to a new altitude. There wasn't really much new technology that was on view. Here we do have a few firsts. So it's not the first reusable rockets, because SpaceX has been doing that for a while. So SpaceX has always had these rockets that can take off and then can beautifully land after reigniting the rocket. Maybe I go back a little bit. They can come down, reignite the rockets, and then land on the pad for reuse. So the reusability of the rockets is not really anything new. SpaceX have had those. There are a few new things, though. Jeff Bezos has said that he's incredibly proud of Blue Origin having the largest windows in space. So the idea being that if you're a space tourist, you go up, you can get an absolutely fantastic view of the Earth. I'm not sure how that plays into the structural integrity of the craft. I imagine it's been taken care of. But they have these beautiful large windows, much larger than the Virgin Galactic space flight. So hoping to get better views of the Earth, hopefully working towards, the kind of Charlie in the Great Glass Elevator in the future, where it's just a glass box where you can see everything 360 degrees around. So apparently the largest windows of any spaceship launched into space is what Blue Origin, New Shepard has. Another first for this particular vehicle is that it will be the first vehicle that essentially breaks the Kármán line as a flight of space tourism. So the idea is that we're going to move into an age of space tourism where many people can fly into space, not just specialists, not just astronauts who have trained for it their whole lives. So this will be the first tourism that has broken the Kármán line. So the definition of where you get into space is actually highly subjective. So a lot of people say it's this Kármán line, which is a distance of about 100 kilometers above the surface of the Earth, about 62 miles. And this was a line that was adopted by the Swiss Air Sports Federation to determine an activity as either aeronautical, so planes, or as astronautical, so spaceships. So this is a rough kind of line, this Kármán line of where people think that kind of space begins. And Branson's flight last week didn't cross this, whereas Bezos' flight this week will. So it becomes the first recreational space tourism flight to pass this line. Other people put this line at different places. So the US Air Force and NASA determined that the boundary for space is at about 50 miles, which is where the military personnel get their astronaut wings. So this altitude has been reached by a number of specialist planes, like the X-15, the North American X-15, and notably the private Airship One. And it's well above the VSS Unity, so Branson's current achievement. So the Blue Origin launch is aiming for about 66 miles. It will break this barrier easily and the higher barrier. But the point is, the definition of space is highly non-trivial. You can't just say these people have gone up, they're feeling weightlessness, so they must be in space. The fact that they're weightless, that they look weightless in the Branson flight, for example, is more a function of the fact that they're going into a dive, they're going into a free fall, so they feel weightlessness. And you can get a similar thing on parabolic flights here on the Earth. The G, the acceleration towards the Earth on these flights, still remains, over 95% of that at the Earth's surface. So saying that going into space is weightlessness is a little bit of a hiding to nothing. So they're breaking that Kármán line in this flight, and most people accept that Bezos will be going into space with his 3 other crew. Now, a really interesting part of this, another new thing that comes along with this flight, is when we take into account the crew. So the crew of this flight are... Whoop, I killed the picture. I bring it back up. Crew of Blue Origin. And we can get a nice picture of them. So there's 4 crew members of the Blue Origin. And if I open this image up so we can get a nice view. Put it over here. There are 4 members of this crew. There will be no pilots because this is an automated system. So unlike the system last week displayed by Branson, this will be an automated flight with no pilot. And a couple of the crew members are very interesting. So Bezos and his brother, okay, billionaires, millionaires, not particularly interesting. They're the rich people who put up the money for this flight. The 2 interesting characters are those on the left. So the first one on the far left there is Oliver Damon, who has replaced the anonymous winner of a $28 million auction. So is essentially the first paid for space tourist on New Shepard. And as it would happen, he actually replaces the youngest astronaut ever to go into space, which was German Stepanovich Titov, a Russian cosmonaut. We can get a nice picture of him, I believe. A Russian cosmonaut who, until today, is going to be, or was, the youngest person to fly into space. He was born on the 11th of September 1935 and was just a month short of 26 years old at launch. And he had become the second human to orbit the Earth aboard Vostok 2, preceding Yuri Gagarin, who had been on Vostok 1. And he was the 4th person in space, counting suborbital voyages of the United States. So this record of 26 years old is set to be broken today by an 18-year-old student, Oliver Damon. So people will say, look, this is not a person who has passed a lot of rigorous astronaut training. It's not someone who had to get all the grades, do all the training to get in there. So maybe it's slightly different to the achievements of the past, but still a very interesting milestone. So he's going to smash that record of 26 years of age by being an 18-year-old in space. So a very interesting point for the crew. Another even more fascinating member of the crew is Wally Funk, who you can see there from the second left. And we've got some nice pictures of Wally. So she's going to become the oldest astronaut in space at 82 years of age. So Miss Funk was one member of a group of women called the Mercury 13, who underwent the same screening tests as male astronauts back in the 60s, but who was never able to fly into space. So NASA did not allow women to test for or join space missions, as the basic qualification was that you had to be a military pilot up until the 1970s, which was primarily a male domain. So that proved a bit of a glass ceiling for Funk, and she never managed to go into space, despite being a very pioneering female aviator in that famed Mercury 13 group. So she's now going to become the oldest astronaut in space, and she's actually going to replace John Glenn, who was 77 when he flew his second mission on NASA's Space Shuttle Discovery in 1998. So on February 20th, 1962, Glenn flew the Friendship 7 mission, and he became the first American astronaut to orbit the Earth, the third American and the fifth person in the history of space. So Wally Funk and Oliver Damon are replacing some very illustrious company. Again, they're not as highly trained as these people. I guess Wally Funk is. Oliver Damon isn't. But it's very, very interesting to see those records being smashed, and well smashed. Again, Oliver Damon's going to be 8 years under the current youngest astronaut, and Wally Funk is going to be 5 years above the current oldest astronaut in space. So the crew of the New Shepard is very, very intriguing indeed, and very, very eclectic. I'm sure some will say that it's a bit of a PR stunt, but it's very, very nice to see that Wally gets her chance finally to go into space. So the purpose of this, of course, or the idea behind this New Shepard, is that the company Blue Origin is designed to serve the burgeoning market for space tourism. So this is going to be the latest salvo in what many in the press have dubbed the billionaire space race. And obviously it comes only 9 days after Sir Richard Branson flew high above the Earth on his Virgin Galactic spaceflight. Now, many are seeing this really as a kind of vanity project of billionaires. You know, they have a lot of money to spend, and really this money would be better spent helping in the pandemic effort or solving poverty, at least locally. So a flight on Virgin Galactic costs currently about $250,000, and presumably it's more or similar on Blue Origin. So some people are upset that there's an accessibility issue here. I find that argument, you know, I understand where people are coming from, but of course these things start out expensive, but as the technology matures, as more competition enters that marketplace, you've got Elon Musk, you've got Jeff Bezos, you've got Richard Branson moving into that space, working with NASA. Hopefully with competition and maturity of the technology, those prices will come down and they'll become more accessible. So that argument, I think, falls a little bit flat, although I'm willing to hear it. There's also been concerns raised about the environmental impact of these flights. So according to Virgin Galactic, a standard flight on the Unity returns carbon emissions of 1.2 tons, which is equivalent to a business class flight from London to New York. So similar to aviation. Now, of course, these flights are very sparse at the moment, so it's not really going to make any difference to climate change. But if these become more space tourist-like, many flights all of the time, this is something that's going to have to be considered. Looking at the Blue Origin, it burns hydrogen and oxygen, but obviously getting that hydrogen out requires a lot of fossil fuels to be burnt. So there's some concerns about the potential environmental impact that people will need to look at. Now, Another positive of the Blue Origin, of course, is that they've collaborated with NASA to develop concepts and technologies to support future human spaceflight operations. So when people say, look, billionaires shouldn't be spending their money on these things, they're frivolous things, it's very hard to lay out what will be the benefits in the longer term. You know, could NASA be doing that? Maybe. But it just so happens that these billionaires have the capital in place and have the will to push these things forward. It's very hard to predict what the benefits of that will be. Do we want to go to the moon? We've got the Elon Musk working on a moon mission. Do we want to harvest on the moon? Do we want to do mining on the moon? Do we want faster travel around the Earth, as Virgin Galactic are promising? There's a lot of potential benefits that could come out of this, which are yet to be realized. So there's a lot of people who are a little bit put out, nose out of joint with this, billionaires going into space when they should be helping on the Earth. But I think those arguments are potentially a little bit short-sighted, but again, I'm willing to hear them. So those are the cool points kind of behind this launch today. I'm really looking forward to it. We've got more rockets into space. As Richard Branson said, we want more rockets in space. They do a lot of helpful things, you know, communications technology, even monitoring CO2 emissions so we can look at the effects of climate change. So having more rockets in space is not only cool, but can have potential useful applications. So again, I'm really looking forward to this launch. I've given you a few cool things that make this a unique and interesting launch. And hopefully now we can go over to a live stream and we can watch the launch live. So let's nip over to the Blue Origin's live stream and see where we're at. So the launch should be in about 3 minutes time. Looks like we're already on the pad. It's incredibly warm here.
All right, everybody, we are at T-minus 14 minutes and 5 seconds to go until launch here. Got goosebumps going already.
Apparently 14 minutes.
Adrenaline is building and the energy is building up here as the clock ticks down. And while our astronauts and our teams are going through the final checks with our crew member 7 and the launch team, let's talk about seeing Earth from space and how it changes you. And we're very fortunate here at Blue Origin to have several NASA astronauts that are working with us. And they've logged hundreds of hours in space, and they offer a keen perspective on what our first human flight astronauts are just minutes away from experiencing.
I find it's very interesting that people can look at a picture of Earth taken by an astronaut, but they don't get that change inside that actually being there in space gives you. It is one of those things that you kind of have to do.
The perspective from space is a really fantastic one. You can see things that you never thought you'd see from Earth.
It really can't help but change your life. It changes your perspective. Having that kind of an experience makes you feel smaller.
You really do come back with a sense that the Earth is a closed environment. Everything we have here to eat, breathe, drink, it's all traveling together.
And looking at the blackness of space and looking at the surface of the Earth and seeing that almost nothing separates those two. All of humankind is on this one small rock, protected by this thin, fragile little layer of air.
It makes you realize that the planet is, in fact, a giant spaceship traveling through space that's home to 7 billion of us. And I think every astronaut who goes to space is changed by it in some way.
They've actually documented a change in core values in almost all astronauts from before the flight to after the flight. And as millions and millions of people begin to get this experience, I think the knowledge on Earth and a different understanding about our planet will gradually occur.
It's a very interesting perspective.
The experience of something that changes who you are on the inside. It's very powerful. It is so memorable and so unique that people walk away speechless.
It's a very interesting idea that he's just floated there, that people getting a view of the Earth as a very insulated, closed
Incredible
system
stuff. I hope one day
might
we
help
get
them to focus on, I guess, things like climate change
I know, obviously, the
or
four people
food
that are on top of
shortages
that
or
rocket are
droughts or
about to
whatever
do that.
problems we might
Gary,
face on
do
the
you want
Earth.
to talk to us a little bit
Getting
about
that
today's
external view
flight
gives you a
profile,
different
how they're getting up to space over the
perspective
Kármán
on
line
those
and back
things.
home
Very
down here to
interesting
West
idea.
Texas?
Absolutely. So T-0 is the time that we...
Actually, Gary, if you don't mind standing by, I understand that we are ready for our go, no-go poll.
This is the flight director. New Shepard is go for launch. Booster, commence terminal count.
Wilco flight.
Controller, strap UHF voice.
So there's that Kármán line. They've been playing up this an awful lot with the Blue Origin flight because Richard Branson didn't make it to that line. There was a little poster that went out that said all of the benefits of Blue Origin over Unity. The bigger windows, the fact that it gets up into what most people call space, the fact that it burns hydrogen rather than rocket fuel.
All right, thank you everybody
all of
for
these
joining us again.
positives of this rocket.
Sorry about that.
Over the Virgin
we got so
Galactic
caught up
system.
in the flight profile and that and the perspectives from our NASA astronauts. We just caught the tail end there of the go no go poll, but I'm hearing that we're looking good for flight today. So let's get back into that flight profile, Gary, that you were telling us about here. Again, how are they getting up to space, over the Kármán line, the internationally recognized line of space, and then
They're
back
really
down
pushing
here
that they're going over that
Earth
line
in West Texas?
Okay, so T-0 is actually not the point of liftoff. It's when we send the command to start the engine. It lifts off about 7 seconds later. It will ascend for about 2.5 minutes and then shut off. It goes through what we call MECO, main engine cutoff. About 20 seconds after that, the capsule will separate, and that's when the fastened seatbelt light on their panels will turn off, and they'll be able to float around the capsule for 3 to 4 minutes. During that time, both vehicles are still ascending, and they will ascend above 100 kilometers. The Kármán line today, we're headed for about 105, 106 kilometers, and then start their descent. The capsule, the booster will actually re-enter first. It's more aerodynamic. Before it hits the atmosphere, it deploys wedge fins on top to stabilize it, and then uses those aft fins to steer back over the pad. Just over the pad, about 20,000 feet above, it deploys drag brakes to slow itself down, and then restarts its engines just seconds before hitting the ground to slow itself down to a soft
So we get a
landing.
reusable rocket. Once the
landing
rocket
legs
is
will come out
separated,
just seconds before
falls
landing.
back
It
to
might
Earth
do
with
1 or
fins
2
that stabilize its
maneuvers
descent.
to make sure that it's
The
over
rocket
that pad,
restarts
and
near
then
the
it will touch
ground,
down softly.
and it lands softly
Meanwhile,
on the
the
ground to be
capsule
reused
will
again.
continue its flight. The astronauts will strap back in before hitting the atmosphere, get back in their seats. There'll be thrusters that will stabilize the capsule just to prevent it from rocking too much, and then parachutes will deploy about 10,000 feet above the ground. First drogues will fire, and those will extract the mains. And then finally,
So the capsule is essentially ballistic, I guess, after the separation from the rocket.
6 feet off
It's
the
just
ground.
like you throwing a rock. You've launched it off, the rock's
Fantastic.
now flying,
And you know, we
flies up
mentioned this
into the
before
air,
on
reaches a
previous
zenith,
webcasts
and then
that,
starts to come back down and fall
the
towards
dirt
the Earth.
down here, it's like talcum powder. It goes everywhere. And so when we have that air cushion that fires, it really kicks up the dust. But again, they're coming in at just about 1 or 2 miles an hour. It's a really nice, soft landing. And again, Gary, we confirmed we are go for launch for first human flight on New Shepard. My goodness, I mean,
A really
you've been
interesting
waiting
point
for this
raised in the
day
chat
for
by my friend
17
Philip,
years
Protagonist
since you joined
Science,
Blue Origin. What are you
saying that
feeling
Earth
right
Day
now,
and the
Gary?
environmental
Still hard
movement
to
in the
believe that it's
1970s
actually
was
here.
in
I
part
don't know if it's
inspired
set in yet, but
by the Apollo
main thing I'm
mission. So
feeling is I'm
maybe
thinking about,
a lot of
the
people are
entire team,
complaining about
past and
wasted
present,
money
the
on these
hundreds and
flights.
hundreds
Maybe
of
the
people,
perspective that they
that
give
have
us of
worked
the
on
Earth
the
as a
Leadership program
closed
and what
system,
this must mean
as
for
the
them.
Earth is our home, the only
Absolutely.
place that we have
you know, we
in
talked
that
about
blackness of space.
about
Maybe
the
that will
team
start
here.
to change people's
It's a
perspectives
lean
on
and
things
mean
like
team,
climate
obviously,
change and the
but each one
use
of
of
those people
resources.
has
Who knows?
contributed
It's very
so
difficult to
much
weigh up
to this
the
program.
pros and
It's,
cons of
again,
these
a
things.
special
It's
shout out to
very easy
all
to
of our
bash on
Blue Origin team
billionaires and
members
say,
watching
spend your money
around
on
the
this.
world. Now,
But weighing
for
the
others
costs and
that are
benefits
watching around the
of
world,
going into space,
if
maturing
you
these
want to
technologies, it's very
experience
hard to
space
know
flight for
where the
yourself,
ways line,
if you want
where
to do
the weights
what
of those
Jeff
two
and
line
Mark
up.
and Wally and Oliver are doing today, and you're serious about it, send us an email at astronauts@blueorigin.com. We're open for ticket sales to send you all to space. What just an incredible, incredible day. And, we're so lucky to have this particular crew on board today, Gary. And I feel like, not only do we have this beautiful story about the Bezos brothers that are going up, and Wally and Oliver, soon to be the oldest and the youngest astronauts who have ever flown into space. Oliver, that's representing our international friends out there, taking the Dutch flag to space, and then again Wally, who has been thinking about going to space, well, her entire life, but certainly since the 1960s, and she was part of that program that got canceled, and she just kept fighting until recently we said, hey, Wally, why don't you join us for this first crew? And I can only imagine our future customers that are going to go on board. They're going to represent the world. They're going to represent many different backgrounds, and we certainly look forward to that. As we mentioned, we're going to have 2 more flights in 2021 for a total of 3, and again, many more to come in the future. And that is just fantastic. And I can imagine, again, as you were building the system, Gary, as you were thinking about, okay, this is not just a 1 or 2 flight, operation with New Shepard. You've built it for a long-term program.
We've built it to continue indefinitely and to take hundreds and hundreds of astronauts in the future. We hope to be into the thousands soon.
And just think about that,
I
right?
guess that's why you need the redeployable rockets. You don't just want to be losing a rocket every time if you're doing thousands of flights.
Over the Kármán line, up 100 kilometers up over the internationally recognized line of space. And today we're going to add 4
They're really
more
playing that up again
to that list. Which
we
is
are
so,
better than Branson.
So cool.
Yes, and someday in the near future, we will be over 570 just on the New Shepard program.
Can you imagine? Are you going to go up?
Absolutely.
You going to go up with me?
Sure.
You in, man? Awesome. Okay, we are T-minus 4 minutes and 20 seconds to go until launch. What
I need
an
to
incredible
find
moment. Let's check out
£250,000 somewhere to
New
go.
Shepard on the pad here. We are awaiting. The rocket is going to go into some last-minute checks on the vehicle. At T-minus 2 minutes is when the vehicle, we throw the show over to her.
4 minutes
it's all
until
on
the
her.
rockets
It's an
ignite.
autonomous vehicle. But Gary, do you want to talk to us about what are some of those last-minute checks that the vehicle is going through, and that we're going to see especially on our screen?
Right, so as you mentioned, the last 2 minutes are auto sequence, and that is executed entirely by the vehicle itself through an automated checklist. You'll see a couple of things. There will be things that you don't see, such as sensor checks, pressure checks on the tanks.
So remember, this vehicle
radio
has
checks,
no pilot. It's completely
hundreds
automated.
of different checks will be stepped through in this checklist. But what you will see is the hydraulic system spooling up, which will wiggle the engine gimbal as well as the aft fins. They're not only wiggling those surfaces, but they're making sure that there's no stiction and they travel smoothly.
Fantastic. And again, we are waiting to see that. You'll be able to see, as Gary said, you don't get to see all of those last-minute checks, but we certainly get to see the aft fins. As Gary mentioned, those are the fins at the base of the vehicle. There are 4 of those. Obviously, they help direct the rocket both up and down. And then the engine will gimbal. That is our BE-3 engine, the Blue Engine 3, 110,000 pounds of thrust. Liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen are what are the propellants in the engine. It's not only a powerful and also throttleable engine. I'll talk about the throttleability just here for a second. We throttle the engine back as it comes back to land, and that's what creates a nice soft landing, because as it comes in, of course, it's not filled with all the propellant that it had on the way back up. So if we throttle it back, kind of like an airplane, it comes in for a nice, soft landing. And what a trip to space and back. Again, this vehicle.
So that's a really interesting point. When you launch the rocket, it's obviously full of fuel. It's got a lot of weight, so it needs a lot of thrust to get up to space. Once the capsule is separated off and the rocket is falling back to the Earth, it's largely empty of that fuel. So you only need to give it a little nudge with the rocket when it's falling back to the Earth to be able to get it to
we are
land
about to go to
nice and
space,
gently.
everybody.
Here we go.
We are in auto sequence.
So the computers are in control now. Very Terminator-esque.
Ariane, when that engine gimbal check occurs and that engine swings, they should actually be able to feel it in the cabin because it'll sway the stack back and forth.
There go the aft fin
I can't
checks.
imagine how I'd be feeling sat on top of that thing now. I'd love to go, but it'd also be terrifying.
There you see the engine gimbal check just peeking out at the base of the rocket. All right, here we go, everybody. Thousands of people contributed.
I guess a lot of these cables and fuel lines just pull free when the rocket takes off. It looks like they're not being taken away.
First crew of New Shepard. Let's light this candle.
Let's see how it goes.
T-minus 16, guidance internal.
I still maintain it looks like a giant sex toy.
T-minus 10,
There we go.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Command engine start. 2, 1. Ignition. We have liftoff. New Shepard's cleared the tower.
And New Shepard has cleared the
What an
tower
awesome shot.
on her way to space with our first human crew. Go, Jeff. Go, Mark. Go, Wally. Go, Oliver. You are going to space. Oh my goodness, listen to the roar of the BE-3 engine. We are just about to pass through max Q, maximum dynamic pressure. That is when the stresses on the vehicle are at their maximum.
Max Q.
Max Q is confirmed. Beautiful burn on that BE-3 engine. Liquid hydrogen
Mach 1.
and liquid oxygen as the propellant. It's a nice, not just clean in terms of beautifully performing, but what comes out of it, it's steam, right?
So this is a little bit of a misnomer. Yes, steam comes out of it, hydrogen and oxygen burning.
The
But
glow
getting hydrogen in the
of
first
engine
place
underneath the rocket just
requires
under
a hell of a lot of
our shoulders, and to
electricity
know
and fossil
that we've
fuels.
got a crew that is
So
going to space.
saying it's clean,
it's
clean at the point of
It just feels
use.
different, doesn't it, Gary?
it's not necessarily
It's totally
particularly clean.
All right, you can follow along, of course, the speedometer in the bottom left, the altimeter
Not that I'm
in
going to
the
stress about
middle
climate
of
change
the
concerns
screen
when we're
there.
watching this rocket launch.
So far appears to be a nominal flight.
Poor Philip, who's a European,
All right, coming up
doesn't
here
know
on
what feet
Miko,
are, which is
main
completely
engine
reasonable.
cutoff, that will
We
be
don't
followed
use them really
shortly
anymore, but
by
3 feet is about
separation.
1 meter.
And at that
1
point,
meter
after
is about
separation, we're going
3
to
feet
let the
or so.
astronauts unbuckle and take in the freedoms of zero G. There is Miko, main engine cutoff. A beautiful shot down the New Shepard rocket. Look at that view. Unreal.
I hope we're going to get some views from inside the cabin.
Awaiting separation here.
So separation coming up. The rocket's been turned off, and we're looking for the separation of that capsule on top from the body of the rocket. Then the capsule will continue higher up, and the rocket will fall towards the ground, conserving momentum.
And here we are. You can start to see. Stand by. You're going to see the separation of the capsule from the booster itself.
Oh, so you have to look out the window. Oh, we need kid done. Oh, wow.
So the crew sound to be enjoying it. It's a shame we can't get some views inside the cabin.
And there we go. Our astronauts have passed the Kármán line at about 328,000 feet, continuing their ascent. You see the two vehicles there. When the speed hits 0, you know that they've hit apogee, their maximum altitude, and you hear they're having quite an experience.
So the speed went to 0, they reached the top, and now I guess they're coming back down because the speed is going back up.
You just have to wait for it. You want the Skittle. Oh, yeah. Yeah!
1 minute warning. 1 minute warning.
So I guess that's the 1 minute warning to get back into your seats before you come crashing back to Earth. Get buckled back in. So they've been enjoying their weightlessness from the free fall of the rocket from the peak, falling down. It's not weightlessness due to being in space, quote unquote. It's from falling back towards Earth like a parabolic flight, and they're now going to have to strap back in for the descent back to Earth. On the left there, it looks like you've got the rocket, the booster, coming back towards the Earth to land and be reused. On the right, I guess you've got the image of both of the vehicles, the capsule and the rocket.
Astronaut Oliver.
Oh, wow. Oliver, status check. Oh, sorry.
Blue Control, Oliver, status perfect. In seat.
Copy, Astronaut Wally.
Wally.
Blue Control, Wally is in seat.
Copy, Astronaut Demo.
Astronaut Demo, revive seat.
Copy, Astronaut Bezos.
So here comes the rocket back towards the ground. The rocket booster.
Copy.
It's now largely emptied of fuel, so when it comes towards the ground, they should be able to reignite the engine, and a brief burst should be able to slow it down, stabilize it, and allow it to land gently on the pad.
Thank you again, everybody, for joining us live for
That's
our first human flight on New Shepard. So far, a nominal flight. Our booster is about to return to its landing
and
pad.
Here we go.
There we
Reignites
see
the engine to slow
relights.
down.
The sonic boom.
And hopefully it will land gently on the pad.
And booster touchdown. Welcome back, New Shepard.
Very, very cool. Oop.
A beautiful rocket that provided a beautiful flight
I guess that's
to
supposed
space.
to happen, the flames at the bottom.
What?
First up, your booster has landed.
Very, very cool.
Booster landed.
And here comes the capsule.
Great to hear about the booster.
And there it is, our crew capsule with our 4 crew members on board.
You have a very happy crew up here, I want you to know.
Sounds like they had a good time. You decide whether that's worth $250,000. I'd love to go if I had the money.
I see the big barn.
Stand by drogues. Stand by drogues. Stand by main. Stand by main.
Oh, so far, a nominal flight. Here comes the crew capsule back from space. The drogues deployed. Here are the mains out, reefing and coming to full inflation. Our rocket went over Mach 3, and now they're coming floating back down at just about 15 or 16 miles an hour, about to join us home. Back here in West Texas, after having gone over the Kármán line, the internationally recognized line of space, the world's newest astronauts. Gary, how you holding up, friend?
I am speechless.
I'm pretty jealous. I'm not gonna lie.
And those big, beautiful windows.
We've just got about a minute and a half of floating before the activation of the skirt jet for a soft touchdown. At this point, there are sensors on board that are detecting how high they are above the ground, multiple sensors. And just 6 feet above the ground, that cushion of air will puff, and they will have a soft touchdown, almost like just sitting in a chair. But I'm sure their adrenaline is pumping now.
So 500 feet. 400. Coming down at a gentle 16 miles an hour. 200. 100. So they're nearly down. And a puff of air to slow their descent. And they touch
Welcome
down.
back, New Shepard's
Very, very
first human crew. What a flight.
Welcome back to Earth, first step. Congratulations to all of you.
Ah, what a day, what a day.
So there are the two pieces. The rocket booster on the left, which returned, can be refilled, used again, and the capsule here in the main picture,
It was amazing.
containing the crew.
Copy, first step. You have a very happy Capcom here as well. Let's do a status check. Astronaut Oliver.
Blue Patrol, astronaut Oliver, status correct.
Copy. Astronaut. Copy. Astronaut Demo.
Another comment in the chat calling Astro Tourist astronaut is a bit of a stretch.
Unbelievably good.
I kind of agree. I always wanted to be an astronaut when I was younger. You know, I did a relevant degree. You know, tried to stay physically fit. I dreamed of being an astronaut. To me, being an astronaut, the label requires you to have gone through a lot of training. You know, got the relevant grades, put in a lot of work. Wally Funk, someone who has done that. The two Bezos brothers and the rich teenager are not. So I agree. I think it is a little bit of a stretch to put them in a bracket with people like, you know, John Glenn and Neil Armstrong and Helen Sherman and people like this, who essentially dedicated their lives to that. I think calling them astronauts is a little bit strong. You know, we're saying now we've got the oldest and youngest astronauts in space ever. I think that's fair with Wally Funk because she could have been an astronaut in a younger life. Saying that the 18-year-old is the youngest astronaut ever, taking that away from cosmonauts in the 60s, I can see how people would find that a little bit grating.
Blue Patrol, please say that in meters.
Definitely got a few drones out though for the cool shots.
That was incredible. Wally, that was incredible.
So Philip, what new word would you give to these space tourists? If we're not going to use astronaut, what do you think would be a fair word? Astro tourist? What would be a fair word? Anyone who wants to put their ideas in the comments, feel free to do so. Any comments, any questions? Welcome in the chat here on YouTube.
Newest minted astronauts there on board discussing their incredible flight of a lifetime up to space and back. Wow. Our team is now preparing.
To be fair, I don't know if the
landing
astronauts on the
safety
stream, the
operations,
genuine astronauts on the stream, how they
recovery,
actually feel about
crew has already,
these people being called astronauts.
Well, minutes ago,
I guess if you're getting
has
paid a
left the barn
fortune
there
by
to
Jeff
go,
Bezos, you just allow it. It's
Open the
fine.
hatch. You can see them there. They're arriving at the capsule in the Rivians. You can actually also see that the parachutes fell very close to the capsule. It means that there's not much wind out there. It was a beautiful, beautiful day. Not too shabby, Gary. What do you think?
No, it was picture perfect. And it sounds like it landed pretty much exactly where we predicted. That's how they can get to it so quickly. They start moving even before it landed based on the prediction of landing. We use weather balloons that we launched throughout the morning, and that gives us a very good idea of where it will land, which is within 1,000 feet. What you're seeing that they're doing right now is Kevin Sprogue, crew member 7, is just making sure everybody is okay and gives them a thumbs up. They're also grounding the vehicle. When you go into space, you could accumulate pretty significant electric charge. That's actually why we prefer that the astronauts not get out themselves so that we can ground the vehicle of static charge, which can be quite strong.
Oh, interesting.
Excellent, and I think
So the
that
motion
Kevin
of the craft
Sprogue, our
builds
crew
up
member
significant
7, has
static,
given the,
and they want to ground it before
given the
letting
thumbs
people
up.
come out
For
and get
all
shocked.
of our astronauts that are on board there, again, Jeff Bezos, Mark Bezos, Wally Funk, and Oliver Damon. What an incredible day. You heard them on the audio. Best day ever. I mean, this is I feel like this is our best day ever, and we didn't even get to go up to space. I mean, what a day. Again, congratulations to the entire Blue Team, our astronaut crew, and of course the friends and family of these incredible astronauts.
I think the people who really
Just about
deserve
to
the
exit
congratulations are the
capsule here.
team of engineers
Let's wait
and
for that
scientists
moment. There you see Jeff
who
in the
put this
window.
together. Really operated superbly and just as they expected.
Felix is up here. All right, guys, what we'll do later.
Philip says we should call them space flight passengers because we don't call airline passengers sky pilots. I guess that's fair. It's consistent.
Hey, the main parachute line in front of the hatch.
I did have a little bet with a friend of mine when I was an arrogant student, saying we had a bet that I would go into space, and he offered me some, long odds because it's very unlikely that you will do so. But I thought about this potential for space tourism to come along. So apparently I've got until I'm 82, so another 40 odd years. Nearly 50 years to be able to get into space and win that bet. I don't think he thought about that. I think he thought I was trying to be a genuine astronaut.
You heard there, the CC is safe.
So maybe this will open up that future of space tourism. We'll have to see. The prices will have to come down. But maybe that's the course.
Confirm. Okay, you can go live. Go to the camera. Jimmy!
Gary, the architect of New Shepard, congratulations to you, man.
Congratulations.
Give me a
to
hug.
you.
This is just, ugh. What a day.
A lot of performative hugging.
Again, thank you everybody for joining us live for our first human flight of New Shepard. Our 4 astronauts went to space and back, topping over 350,000 feet, well over 100 kilometers. They've come back down safely. We're just waiting here for egress. Our crew is going to get out of the capsule and meet their families back here on the ground. Of course, their families that have provided so much support since they were
So
little
I guess
kids.
we're coming to the end of this, guys. So if you have any questions or comments you'd like to put, let me know, and I'll address those. Otherwise, probably give it another 5 minutes and call it a day on a very cool flight.
Family, you ready? Family, are we ready?
I hope I'm that lively when I'm 82, I will say that.
Oliver! Congratulations! Congratulations! Your dad has been around, sweetie. Oh my God! Your dad is great. Oh, congratulations! Woo! You gotta get up there, sweetheart. Oh my God! It was so great. Oh.
What a day again here, a successful launch and landing of the New Shepard rocket and crew capsule with our first human flight crew there. Jeff Bezos, Mark Bezos, Oliver Damon, and Wally Funk. And their families there giving big hugs all around. What a moment, so much emotion from all of them. The elation. Did you see Wally? Did you see Wally when she came out? You know this.
Wally does
I told
have
you
so
she was
much
just
energy
she's
for an
probably going to do a
82-year-old.
summer, cartwheel if she
Excellent
came
to
out
see.
of that capsule. What an incredible day.
And a really nice story, actually, for her to get into
Let's
space.
just capture a couple
Really,
more
really
moments
nice.
of this. Again, space flight, so much engineering, so much objective, hard engineering, technical thought that goes into it. But when you put people on board, there's such an incredible emotional component to this. The time, the effort, the blood, sweat, and tears, you know this better than anybody else. Again, congratulations, Gary.
Thank you, Ariane. And congratulations to the entire Blue Origin team. This might have looked easy today. It was anything but easy. To design a vehicle like this that is so safe that anybody can get on board.
From Wally Funk, who today became the world's
It does
oldest
seem like
astronaut
Gary
at
and the engineers
82,
deserve the
to Oliver
lion's
Damon,
share
who
of the
became
praise
the world's
for this.
youngest astronaut at 18. He joined us from the Netherlands. Again, big shout out to our viewers in the Netherlands. Congratulations. You should be very, very, very proud of your countrymen. I mean, again, and representing the next generation of people that are going to go into space. I mean, I can't wait to see what Oliver does with his future. I can only imagine. You heard him in the video. You know, he just wants to spread the love, spread the message. I can't wait to hear their impressions of the view from up there. And in fact, I hear in just a moment we hope to be getting a couple of impressions from our astronauts. We'll stand by for that there. You see the friends, the family. You see our CEO, Bob Smith, there. You see a couple of our other executives, of course, this crew safety team.
Champagne.
And it's champagne time, everybody.
So I don't know if we're going to get an interview here. It's slightly upsetting that we didn't get any shots from inside the capsule, but
it's the only proper way to end the space flight.
Exactly, only proper way to end a space flight with a champagne shower. And man, that is, let me just tell you, that is the beginning of the celebrations. There is a lot more to come. We are, again, not just the crew and the families, but everybody at Blue Origin who has made the historic day possible. Well, there's a big hug from Jeff to Wally Funk.
The oldest person in space. You. So that's so wet.
A beautiful moment there.
Thank you.
For a woman who was denied her opportunity to go to space in the 60s, she had to wait to the 2020s, but man, it was worth the wait. There you see the Bezos brothers hugging it out. Oliver Damon, you saw him earlier giving his father a big hug. What a moment. You saw the first hug when Jeff came out of the capsule to his mother, Jackie, followed by his father, Mike. I mean...
It's really interesting, actually,
Again,
that obviously astronauts have to go through and be elite physical
to the
specimens, but an 82-year-old woman
Team Blue, you
seems to have been able to take this
today
very
as well.
simple
I know
flight
you were all hugging it out back
without too
in
much trouble,
Kent,
which
Washington, at our headquarters near
bodes
Seattle,
well for the future
sending
of
you guys a lot of love
more
from
commercial
down here
space
in
flight.
West Texas. What a moment.
I don't know if we're going to get some words from the astronauts trying to hang on for that.
I mean, granted, Gary, we weren't in the capsule, but my favorite part was hearing, the hooting and hollering and the laughing. Jeff is known for his big, boisterous laugh. I mean,
they need more SUVs.
He's having the moment of a lifetime here, and you can only imagine as they were floating around up there. You saw them say, "Gosh, look at the views." Gary, is this as you had expected it? 17 years ago when you joined Blue Origin, we like to we like to start at the end goal, work backwards to make the design, and then build forwards. When you sat there 17 years ago with the very small team at the time at Blue, is this what you would imagine?
It's certainly what we hoped for, but with the size of the team, when I joined Blue Origin, there were only 20 of us in a warehouse, and it would have taken a huge leap of faith to think that we could have gotten to this point, but we have.
Just incredible. I've been here 7 years. We were at 300, so man, you got me beat by a lot there. But I can remember when I joined the team, and we were talking about the moment, the day that we were going to fly people. You talk about it, but it's here and it's now. And I remember we were talking about, okay, well, what will this video look like, and what will that video look like? It doesn't compare. It doesn't matter. This is real. This is so much better than anything that we could have ever imagined. They're
really struggling to nurse this through until we get an
flight.
interview with Jeff Bezos.
We've had 15 consecutive test flights, which, as you said earlier, is why we knew that we were ready to put people on board this rocket, and that's what led us to today. To know that we could do this safely, and to give people the experience of a lifetime. And I think based on what we see there, I think job well done, sir. Job well done.
And not only did we do it today, we can do it again and again and again and again.
Precisely. Absolutely love it. That was amazing. Everybody, I want to thank you all for joining us from around the world for today's Blue Origin historic first human flight. It's been a moment for the ages, and guess what? We're just getting started. We've got 2 more flights this year and several more in the coming years. I want you to join us a little bit later today. We're going to have a live press conference on our website. You're going to get to hear the firsthand impressions from our 4 astronauts that went to space and back. But to all of you out there, if you like what you saw and you are serious and interested about reserving your seat on a future rocket ride to space and back with New Shepard, we've got some exciting news for you. We are open for ticket sales. Send us an email, astronauts@blueorigin.com. We can't wait to fly you to space and back. Gary, it has been an honor to share the desk with you today, the architect of New Shepard. Thank you so much for your insights. Thank you so much for all of your hard work and all the hard work of your team that has made today possible.
Thank you, Ariane. It was unforgettable.
Absolutely. The road to space is being built, everybody, and we took a huge step today. But we also need your help. If you're interested in learning more about Blue Origin or joining our extraordinary team, please visit our website. And if you'd like to commemorate today's historic launch, we also have some mission patches for you there. And that's also where you can get some apparel, some collectible gear. It is all there. Look at that sweet patch. So beautiful with the names of our new astronauts. What a day. Everybody, my name is Ariane Cornell. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been a pleasure and an honor to be your host. And of course, until our next launch, Gradatum Ferociter.
So, very, very cool. Very, very cool launch. Went really, really well. I think the ones who deserve the biggest praise are obviously the engineers who've got this brilliant automated system up and running and allowed, you know, very young people, very old people to fly, non-professionals to fly in safety and comfort up into space. So really, really amazing stuff. I get the sense that in the coming time, we're just going to get loads of videos of the richer, more successful YouTubers going up into space and, you know, with GoPros and either live streaming or then putting up the footage when they get back. That's my prediction of what's going to happen. We're going to have Mr. Beast or whatever it is going up into space, you know, which is going to make me even more jealous. But there we go. Really, really cool launch. Went really, really well. Congratulations to that entire team. And absolutely amazing. I'm going to be chatting about this more later on with Ramsey Farragher, who's an expert in sensing and space technology. So we should be live this evening, UK time, or mid-afternoon US time. So watch out for that. I'll put a link on the YouTube channel. Thanks for joining, guys. Thanks for your comments, and see you again soon.